Hey there, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, this week we are talking about the riches down in South Florida.
It's still a big, rich race. It's the Pegasus World Cup coming up at the end of January 2020.
We're only 6 weeks away, folks, so we are going to bring you an early look. Matt, it's going to be some mad money, down in South Florida.
That's for sure, Brian.
Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the outstanding pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. And how are you, my friend? We got a good show coming up. Lots of interesting horses to talk about for the Pegasus World Cup.
Early look at the Pegasus, folks. What could be better? We're only 6 weeks out, Matt, from the richest race in America. $9 million up for grabs. 9 furlongs at Gulfstream Park. I believe it's January 25th. It's Saturday, January 25th at Gulfstream Park, Matt. So this is our early look. Matt, this will be year number 4 for the Pegasus. We've had Arrogate, a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, came back to win the Pegasus. We had Gunrunner, another Breeders' Cup Classic winner, to win the Pegasus. We had City of Light, a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner, win the Pegasus last year over a Breeders' Cup Classic winner in Accelerate. So that bump, that small trip from the Breeders' Cup a few months later to the Pegasus World Cup has been a winning formula so far. We're not going to have the Breeders' Cup Classic winner in this year's Pegasus. We're not going to have the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner in this year's Pegasus. What we might have, though, are a couple of horses who are better than those two winners. What do you think?
I agree with you, Brian. It's going to be a little bit of a different kind of Pegasus World Cup here. Again, the current 3-year-olds in Maximum Security and Omaha Beach may be the headliners. They will obviously have turned 4 years old by the time the Pegasus World Cup is run.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are arguably the best 2-3-year-olds in the country still while we're talking about 2019, Matt. And hey, let's start our Pegasus preview, early look preview show by looking back, by recapping the race of the week, the horse of the week from last week. We go to Aqueduct, the Big A, your neck of the woods, sir, for the Cigar Mile. Matt, Maximum Security was at his dominant best. Spun to run, coming off a Breeders' Cup win, had no answers for Mr. Maximum Security.
I think there were very few horses that would have run in that race in that one-turn mile at Aqueduct that would have had any answers for Maximum Security on that day. He was, like you said, Brian, he was at his best. And before the race, I asked Jason Service how he was doing, and Jason is a guy who it's hard to get to say very much, but I've gotten to know him a bit over this year's campaign, and with him being based at Monmouth Park, and he was a very confident trainer before the race.
Yeah, and that despite the specter of Spun to Run coming off that big Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile win and another speed horse, but Maximum Security too much during the race. Spun to Run chased and tried his hardest, but Maximum Security was just too good in the Cigar Mile, Matt. Really, really cool year Maximum Security has put together. Historic year. We're talking about the Kentucky Derby. First horse ever to get disqualified from the running of the Kentucky Derby. Finished first in that. But you talk about the sprinting in the Bold Ruler. You talk about the one-turn mile, the Cigar Mile, the 10 furlongs of the Kentucky Derby, throwing a couple big 9-furlong wins like the Florida Derby and the Haskell. Really a sensational year. I guess he ran 8 times and hit the wire first in 7 with 1 second thrown in when he clearly was not his best in his first race back from the Kentucky Derby. But I literally have been more impressed with this horse every single race since the Florida Derby Save the loss to, who was the horse that beat him in Monmouth? King for a Day. Save the loss to King for a Day. I've been impressed with him each and every time. I wasn't a believer back this time last year, or certainly even into the Kentucky Derby. But wow, Cigar Mile was huge, Matt. Certainly, I think we can talk about him as a champion now.
I don't think there's any question about that. And Brian, when you were recapping the season of Maximum Security, hey, don't forget throwing about a colic in there that the son of New Year's Day had to overcome and recover from, and amazingly he bounced right back from that and just kept right on going. And I, like you, Brian, have done a complete turnaround on Maximum Security. I was a doubter early on, those early races down at Gulfstream Park, heading into the Florida Derby. I guess that performance started to sway me a little bit, but now I've got nothing to say but really good things. And what I am most impressed with from Maximum Security is that he is a great competitor. And he thrives on competition. And the best comes out of him as soon as he sees a horse coming after him. And that's what happened in the Cigar Mile. Maximum Security got on the lead, had control of the race. Going into the turn, Saez started to scrub on him and ask a little bit. And at that point, Spun to Run started to inch up a little bit. And as soon as Maximum Security caught a glimpse of competition, he just digs in and draws away. And to me, along with what you said, all the different distances, all the different tracks, that is the quality of a special horse.
Amen, Matt. I'm right there with you. Obviously, he's got a horse. This is a horse with a big heart, and he likes the competition. He likes to have horses come up to him. Certainly, that was proven at the Run for the Roses first Saturday in May, when a plethora of horses could have passed him. Sure, he caused some trouble. I never said he didn't in the Derby, but the way he just fought off horses in that Derby was something special, and it's being proven out now time and time again as the season has gone on. Matt, a few other things we should talk about. First off, Spun to Run was coming into that race so well. So for what Maximum Security was able to do to him in the Cigar Mile, kind of mano a mano, was just really impressive. I would not argue with anyone that said this was Maximum Security's best race yet. The good news is, of course, Maximum Security is going to run at 4, and we're talking about the Pegasus World Cup today. It starts at the Pegasus World Cup. So he'll have 7 weeks off between the Cigar Mile and the Pegasus World Cup, which sounds pretty ideal. He's had 2 races back now, which sounds pretty ideal. And then you look at his record at Gulfstream Park. Some of them were cheaper races, but just so impressive in those wins. He's 4 for 4 at Gulfstream Park.
Yes, Brian. And interestingly, it's almost exactly a year. It's a week shy of a year from that now we look back and kind of chuckle at it, but that debut that Maximum Security made in the $16,000 maiden claiming race. Where were we, Brian? We could have scraped together $16,000.
Yeah, if only we knew, Matt. If only we knew. Hey, Maximum Security is the horse to beat, provided he ends up in the starting gate in the Pegasus, as we expect. Knock on wood, all things go smoothly from here. Maximum Security will be the favorite, the horse to beat in the Pegasus World Cup, but by no means are we handing the race over to him yet. Not when we have horses like the next horse on our list, Matt, Omaha Beach. Now, Omaha Beach has also had 2 races off a layoff, a longer layoff than Maximum Security had, and looked really good sprinting, and then just fell a little too far behind Spun to Run early in the dirt mile, but ran on well to finish second in the dirt mile. Omaha Beach started the year with a second, 4 really impressive wins in a row. His last race, he was second, of course, as I said, in the Breeders' Cup dirt mile, but he'll get one more start, Matt, the day after Christmas, which will give him just about a month before the Pegasus in the Grade 1 Malibu.
Yes, and trainer Richard Mandella is as we know, just so good at setting a target and getting a horse ready for a big race. We've seen him do it multiple times in the Breeders' Cup, and that's what he has had his eye on. He has had his eye on the Pegasus World Cup. Yeah, that second in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile was a little disappointing, but completely understandable, considering that when he got too far behind, it was because that racetrack was not one on which you could close that much ground against a horse that was going really well.
Yeah, absolutely. The Son of Warfront had an excuse in the Dirt Mile, and certainly not a bad performance, Matt. Though looking how good Maximum Security has come back in his last two races, do you hold a little bit against Omaha Beach in that Spun to Run was the horse who really didn't let Omaha Beach close to him in that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and then Spun to Run was the horse who aimlessly chased Maximum Security last week in the Scar Mile.
Well, sure, you can't ignore that fact in there, and I will admit that right now, if I was asked to pick between Maximum Security and Omaha Beach, I would pick Maximum Security. But Brian, I full well expect Omaha Beach to run a big one in the Malibu.
There you go. Me too. I think Omaha Beach is only going to get better. Remember last year, before breaking his maiden by so many lengths against a future Queen's Plate winner, Matt, Omaha Beach took a little while to get going. I guess he didn't take a little while to get going this time when he came back from the layoff with that huge performance over Chancelot, who came back to finish second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So he came back running, but probably better things are to come. I feel that way. It sounds like you feel that way. We expect Omaha Beach for the great trainer Richard Mandella to just get better. And if he gets better from race 2 to 3, I'm talking about the Dirt Mile to the Malibu, and then even a little bit better with the master trainer pointing him for the 9 furlongs at the Pegasus World Cup at the end of January, we should see the very best Omaha Beach. And quite frankly, Omaha Beach at his best and Maximum Security at his best at 9 furlongs, possibly an optimal distance for both. That's a race I want to see, sir.
That is for sure.
All right, so if Maximum Security is the favorite, Omaha Beach wins this Malibu like we think he's got a great shot to do. He is a strong second choice, Matt. Those are 3-year-olds. Those are horses who are the top 3-year-olds who are about to turn 4 before we get to the Pegasus. How about we throw in a little age now, Matt? I mean, you and I don't mind talking about a little age. Never mind. I'm not going to go down that road. Tom State Tot, Matt, is a 6-year-old. Let me tell you Tom State Tot's lifetime record. 16 races, this 6-year-old, 9 wins. Obviously, he's had some physical issues over his career for GMB Racing and trainer Al Stahl. But when he's on, he's awfully good, and he's gotten better and better. I sat here on HorseCenter several months ago and said Tom State Tot is the real deal. He's going to roll in the Woodward, and big things are coming Tom State Tot's way. Now, before the Woodward, he ran big in the Alydar, minor stake at Saratoga. Of course, in the Woodward, he got beat maybe 2 lengths, but it just wasn't the race I was expecting at all. But since then, the son of Smart Shrike has come back with 2 big wins in Kentucky. One in the slop at Keeneland, one on a much better conditioned racetrack at Churchill Downs. I tell you what, the way he's looked in those 2 races, this is the Tom State Tot I wanted 3 or 4 months ago, and this is the Tom State Tot, also a 9 furlong horse, who could give the younger horses a real eye-opening in the Pegasus.
Yeah, talk about a horse that's needed time to find his best. That is certainly true of Tom State Tot, who right now has found his best. Won his first Grade 1, 2 big victories in a row for Tom State Tot as a 6-year-old. Clearly a horse that is at his best right now, and a horse that you cannot ignore come the Pegasus World Cup.
Yeah, and we talked about Maximum Security in Omaha Beach being 3-year-olds turning 4. Okay, they should be caught up physically to the older horses, if you will. But I still think there's an advantage to having a little bit more experience, a little bit age. Personally, I think horses mature when they're more like 5 years old rather than just turning 4. So listen, Maximum Security, the favorite. Omaha Beach, the second choice, provided he wins the Malibu. Tom State Todd is a very interesting third choice in the Pegasus. And if he runs to the Fayette and if he runs to the Clark, folks, this is a serious racehorse. Don't let the Woodward or a few losses before in his career fool you. He's gotten that good. So those look to be the 3 choices Matt and I wanted to talk about most as we look to the Pegasus World Cup. Then we have a handful. I think we have about 6 more horses that we need to mention that we think are all very likely for the Pegasus World Cup. Again, we're giving you an early look 6 weeks out, but these horses are pointing for the Pegasus World Cup for sure. And there's not one of them, Matt, that I don't find interesting. Let's start with a horse I think well known probably for the wrong reasons. He was a maiden running in huge races. He literally couldn't get a step out of the Preakness starting gate without dumping the Hall of Fame rider Johnny Velasquez. But Bodie Express is a good horse.
Yeah, Brian, and I guess he fits right in with the theme that we've been talking about so far about horses who are at their best right now. And that seems to be the case with Bodie Express, who now has 2 wins in a row, which is real nice considering all the races that he went through. Broke his maiden, gotten a nice allowance win in there, and is trained by a very, very high-quality trainer in Gustavo Delgado, who, as we know, knows how to get horses ready for big races.
Yeah, Gustavo Delgado, of course, was a huge success down in South America before he started winning big races in America. Bodie Express has never won a big race, folks. He's not even a stakes winner yet. But there's so much more to his story, a very interesting story. He sprinted against Chance-A-Lot back in the day in his 4th lifetime start. It was a maiden special weight at Gulfstream Park, and he almost beat Chance-A-Lot sprinting. He just missed by a neck. Then I think he was about 70-1 in the Florida Derby, going from the sprint to the 9 furlongs of the Florida Derby. And he's the horse that split Maximum Security and Code of Honor in the Florida Derby. He was second as a maiden in the Florida Derby. The Kentucky Derby, he was right there on the turn before the holes started closing up and him getting squeezed and just pushed back badly. Sure, he faded after that, but who knows how well the maiden would have run in the Derby if not for all the trouble. Obviously, the Preakness is a throwaway race. And then they did something smart. Delgado and his ownership just said, all right, that's enough for now. We're going to send him to a farm at Ocala. We're going to let him recuperate, mature, rest a little bit. Came back late summer with a series of works, easy maiden win, and then a track record allowance win in his last start at Gulfstream Park West. He'll get a chance to become a stakes winner before the Pegasus World Cup when we run the Harlan's Holiday this year. I expect Bodie Express, even though he's facing some good older horses in this Harlan's Holiday on Saturday, to be the favorite in there, Matt. I think he's got that much steam right now, and I think that steam may be real for the son of Bodie Meister. The horse, I think that the obvious horse that he'll have to beat in the Harlan's Holiday again Saturday at Gulfstream Park is Prince Lucky. Now, Prince Lucky we saw win a very nice stakes race on Belmont Stakes Day a year and a half ago. And he just seems like the horse who can throw in some really big races, but has never proven it in the big races, unfortunately, for trainer Todd Pletcher. Prince Lucky is the horse Bodie Express has to beat, Matt, in the Harlan's Holiday.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Prince Lucky, to his credit, is a horse that likes Gulfstream Park, has 2 wins in 2 tries at Gulfstream Park. He won a graded stakes race, the Gulfstream Mile, at Gulfstream. And, like you said, Brian, since then, he won that state dinner, which was a listed stake, but kind of seems to be a horse that does his best running around 1 turn. 2-turn races have not been his strength.
Yeah, that's right, Matt. We'll see 2-turn races at Gulfstream Park, although not long 2-turn races. I think you hit on a key, though. He was very good at Gulfstream Park last year in both the Hal's Hope and the Gulfstream Park Mile. So if this is a good horse who moves up at Gulfstream Park, at the very least, I'm not going to say he's one of the horses in the Pegasus that I'm pointing to, although we expect him in the Pegasus with a good performance on Saturday. But at the very least, Prince Lucky is a graded stakes winner who likes Gulfstream and will be a great litmus test for Bodie Express on Saturday to see just how good Bodie Express has become. Because if Bodie Express is not the real deal, I don't see him beating Prince Lucky in the Harlan's Holiday. All right, Matt, that's two more possibles or probables for the Pegasus World Cup. Let's go down the list because it just gets a little interesting and weird. I used the mad money when I was talking about Gronkowski in the opener, or I was just talking about the race in the opener. That's a bit of an inside joke from the Belmont Stakes for Matt and I, folks. But Gronkowski is a horse. Hey, let's face it, he was second in the Belmont last year. This year he was second in the Dubai World Cup. This is a classy horse, and he's got a return race that was pretty good.
Yeah, Brian. And, and what's interesting about this field and interesting about a couple of the horses that we're going to mention, only now are we going to get to the horses who are the leading money winners in this field. So, and Gronkowski is the leading money winner in this field with almost $3 million earned. But, he hasn't really come up with a big win. And Brian and I was talking about our inside joke. It was Gronkowski finishing second in the Belmont Stakes behind Justify, and we're in the car stuck in traffic trying to get out of Belmont Park, and some young race fans who had obviously had a wonderful time at the racetrack gave us, hey, roll down the window sign, and one of them said, Gronkowski, Justify, that was mad money, that exact. And I guess he was right. But here's Gronkowski. Hasn't had a win since 2018. He's been training at Meydan, and recently, at the beginning of December, had a third place there as he starts to get ready for the Pegasus.
Yeah, and Gronkowski's been training well. Mad Money Gronk has been training well. You got to respect a horse that can run second in races like the Belmont and the Dubai World Cup. The Dubai World Cup, he wasn't far from winning last year. A really big performance, and I think they think he's getting really good now in training. They're talking about a schedule that could include all of the above, Matt, the Pegasus World Cup, the new Saudi Cup, and then the Dubai World Cup again. So Gronkowski is a real horse who's proven he can run big in big races, even if he is a little bit of an inside joke for Matt and I. Hey, another form-based horse, Matt, I'm going to throw in as a horse looking at the Pegasus World Cup, looking strongly at the Pegasus World Cup. We expect him to come over from Japan, Master Fencer. You look at his results in America, you see I think it was a 5th and a 6th in the Belmont Stakes and the Kentucky Derby, and that might not get you excited, but if you remember both of those races, he was flying in the finish. He was making up a lot of ground, and he wasn't that far from the top horses in the 2 Triple Crown races he tried last year. Obviously, a horse with class. He, too, returned recently from a layoff, and his was an easy win in Japan. And in that race, Matt, showed a little bit more early speed than we ever saw in those races in America.
Yeah, and relatively lightly raced compared to some of these veterans that we have talked about. He's only had 10 starts in his career with 3 wins and 2 second places. But like you said, he didn't run badly in those 2 Triple Crown races.
Yeah, another interesting horse at the very least. I'm going to throw in my top long shot for the Pegasus. He could be, if we're looking at a horse very similar to the 9 horses we're talking about today, Bravazo could be the highest horse on the odds board. And I'll tell you what, Matt, let's go over some of these results. Second in the Preakness, the Haskell, the Clark. Third in the Travers. Third in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Fourth in last year's Pegasus World Cup. All of that was accomplished last year as a 3-year-old or just barely into his 4-year-old year. Long layoff, faded. Not surprisingly, he faded in the Clark. Dwayne Lucas is high on him. Good old Dwayne Lucas, the coach, one of the greatest trainers we've seen in our lifetime, is high on him. I expect to move forward, and I'm not going to forget about all that back class.
Yeah, I certainly assume that he will move forward in there. Lucas is not the kind of trainer that would have him ready to run his strongest race off a long layoff like that. And that whole list of hit the board finishes that you mentioned, Brian, you know what that adds up to? That adds up to more than $2 million in earnings. And to me, when you look at earnings like that, that's always an indication of class, because you can't win that much money running in cheap races.
Yeah, at fourth last year, and that was the worst result I mentioned. I mean, we forget how close he was as a 3-year-old to really doing some big things. Heck, Matt, if Justify didn't win the Triple Crown, it was because Bravazo rolls by him late in the Preakness. He was the closest horse to being a thorn in the side of Justify winning the Triple Crown. One race back, needed the race, obviously, faded to well out of the picture, but look for improvement from Bravazo and maybe, all right, Matt, I'm going to do it one more time. I apologize, folks. Maybe Mad Money, yo. All right. One more horse on the list, and I think another classy horse, Matt. Tax. Tax is a former claimer, like the top horse on a list. But the Son of Arch I always thought he was one of the better looking 3-year-olds in the country last year. He won some big, he tried a bunch of big races, but he won some nice races in New York last year. And I think Tax is another returning horse who could make some noise next year.
Yes, as you said, Brian, he won the Jim Dandy at Saratoga. He won the Withers at Aqueduct on the Kentucky Derby Trail. So he's got 10 wins. 10 starts. I did that again, folks. Excuse me. 10 starts, 3 wins, 3 seconds, and 1/3, with almost $1 million in earnings. He came back from a relatively short layoff, but a little bit of a freshening at Aqueduct to run second in the Discovery. But, unexpectedly, he ran into a very, very good horse, an up-and-coming horse for Shug McGahee, named Performer. So that second place performance is nothing to be concerned about as he gets prepared for the big race in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Performer looks like he'll be the real deal if Shug can bring him back healthy, well-bred horse trained by Shug McGahee, who was a late arrival onto the stakes scene. But Performer's the real deal. Tax tried him and couldn't get by him in his return race, but it was a very good return race. The rest of the field far behind. Tax should move forward off of that race, like we've talked about a few others here. And Tax is a horse with tactical speed. It's been in a lot of tough races, and I would not throw him out as a long shot in the Pegasus World Cup. Matt, we went through our list of 9 who we feel are strong possibilities or probables. There are some horses, of course, missing this race. The Saudi Cup has maybe thrown in a little wrench, but this is still the richest race in America. And get me a race with maximum security in Omaha Beach in it in January, and it's a race to be excited about.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's hope all the top interests in this race that we have mentioned come through their prep races and show up at Gulfstream Park.
Absolutely, that would be fun. Just this field of 9 would be a fun Pegasus World Cup in Carson, race edition number 4 of this Pegasus World Cup at Gulfstream Park. Well, we hope you enjoyed this show, the Pegasus World Cup early look here on HorseCenter. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you, my friend? And don't use the words "Mad Money, yo."
Yo. Okay, Brian, I will not do that. But that was certainly a fun moment at the racetrack for us. And as always, I want to thank Brett Workman, our producer, for putting together the show.
Thanks to Brett. Thanks for all you watching. Thanks to our sponsor, the best contest site out there, that is Derby Wars. Folks, if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation, please do so now. Matt and I will be back next week with another big edition of HorseCenter. We hope to see you then, and we hope you enjoyed the show today. See you next week, folks.